My name is Brad Young, and I'm from Observe It, and I'm introducing here Cyril Plisko from the Grigel Group, longtime member and active participant in both Linux and the Open Solaris environments, very active specifically in the area of security, Linux and Unix security, and he's going to be walking us through today a number of different methods that can be used for auditing Solaris environments. During the course of this session, I definitely encourage you, if you have any questions or comments that you'd like Cyril to approach, feel free to chat them in the questions section of the chat section webinar panel that you have open. So definitely feel to make use of that. And so without further ado, I'm going to pass the microphone over to Cyril. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Brad. Thanks for the introduction. And I will take it from here. We're going to talk about auditing in Solaris, and we will cover some built-in tools, some free-fire software, and we also look at commercial offers. Why are we auditing? There's a number of reasons we are doing it, and I believe you very well aware of that, but just to have a common background. Most obvious reason is regulations. We are required to keep auditing information, to store it for later use, and to present it in case of inquiries from authorities. We can use it for understand exactly what's going on when some third parties or remote users are accessing our systems, our machines. So we'll understand if something goes wrong, who is exactly was behind it and what happened. And we also can use auditing for root cause analysis of various problems, various issues. And sometimes it's very surprising how helpful auditing can be in case we are facing some very serious problem. So Solaris. Solaris comes with relatively few tools that can do some auditing, and I'm comparing it actually with Linux, where coverage is significantly better. But still, we have some of them, and let's go through it. So I'm going to talk about Solaris 10 and Solaris 11 and see what is in here. When you're using Solaris 10, the easiest way to add additional tools which can help you is to use one of the free community repositories that provide various software, add-on software for Solaris. And one of the easiest out there to use is OpenCSW, which is community software, CSW. And you have quite a neat tool to keep your installation up to date, and you can easily install it by using this package add command, which will fetch the package, install it, and when it is done, you just run this package util command and install tools like Screen or sudo or anything else. The repository is quite big, there are plenty of interesting stuff, and you're very welcome to use it in your Solaris 10 systems. So let's see how we can do some basic auditing with Solaris. One of the easiest and probably most known tools is Script. It's very trivial tool, and its use is somewhat limited, but the good side is also very trivial to use it. Just type command script, and here you go. Everything you type from this point on is being recorded into the file, which is by default named TypeScript. And like I said, it's very easy to use. It requires some kind of cooperation from the user, because the user have to start it, but for virtually no setup fee, you can have a log of your entire login session with all the commands being recorded, all the output being recorded, and effortlessly you already have something being stored for later use. You can also add more log entries to the same file. You can keep in different files. The bad or downside of this tool is if you do not want to use it, or if you try to enforce someone to use it, you're actually out of luck, because it's too easy to escape out of a script session. If someone really wants to do it, it just comes without any effort. There are many tricks of how can you actually circumvent this session. The simplest way is to just zeroing out the file, the TypeScript file, from the session itself. Next interesting tool, or very useful tool, is Screen. And Screen isn't provided with Solaris 10 by default. You can fetch it, or you can install it from OpenCSW, for example, or from any other friendly software repository for Solaris, like Solaris Freeware or stuff like that. And when it is installed, I'm sure you're aware of this wonderful tool, wonderful utility. Its biggest advantage is that it actually wasn't designed as an auditing tool. It was designed to have ability to multiplex many terminals into a single line. So for the sake of auditing, you can actually enter into screen session and have someone else being connected to the same session and allow him to observe what exactly is going on in real time. Advantage, or main advantage compared to the script, for example, is, like I said, session is live. There's no buffering, you can see exactly what's going on, but you also should be aware of the fact that there's complete sharing. So if you are watching someone, if you incidentally touch keyboard, it can be observed by someone else. There's interesting technique also where you can actually combine the power of screen and, let's say, for example, SSH, and enforce screen session right upon login. I have a demo which shows how I'm using it myself, because I frequently find myself in a situation where I have to log in some remote machine. It's frequently across the ocean, and I don't want to lose my work, so I want to be in the screen session from the very beginning. So here is the trick that I'm using. I'm using the fact that SSH allows me to configure different commands being executed when I'm using different keys. So what I have done here is I created a special entry in my authorized keys, which actually enforces a specific command being run whenever I'm using this key to log in. So instead of running the shell, I'm running some different command, which in this case is this wrapper script. And if you are wondering what is inside, I can show you as well. Script is really simple. I am figuring out if there are any screen executable, and if it is, I'm just executing it. So let's see how it's working. I'm going to log in using this specific key. Into my tab. when I'm getting the login, I am actually already running in the screen session. So let's pretend I'm doing some work here. And I'm going to connect to the same machine from some other window. So let us see what's going on. Yeah, there is PR start, and let us check. Indeed, there is an open screen session, and I can connect right into it. Here we go. So here's an example of how can we combine both screen and SSH in order to have screen being run automatically upon login. Very nice trick, saves you a lot of time when you are working with remote machines. And of course I can easily leave the session and reconnect to it later back. So just hitting Ctrl-A-D, I'm detaching from the screen, but here we see that another session is still connected. Okay. Let me terminate the session. So next useful tool is sudo, which I'm also sure you're very well aware of. And again, Solaris 10 comes without sudo, and you can install it from OpenCSW, while Solaris 11 does have it in its default repository, and you can use it out of the box. Sudo is actually a non-auditing tool. It was designed with auditing in mind. It was designed with the requirement of getting the right answer to the situation where you have plenty of people and want to specifically allow a number of them to do specific things. It's a very rich, feature-rich tool. You can describe various interesting configurations, although many of the users are just using it for doing some regular stuff, like just find super user privilege tool, and that's it. But if you pay enough attention to how to configure it in the correct way, there are plenty of different interesting things you can do with it. What's one of the less known features of sudo is that you actually can configure it to keep the entire session stored somewhere. And by entire session I mean entire interactive or terminal session. And actually you can reply the session later. There is a tool which is named sudo replay, which let you see the session at normal speed or some kind of fast forward and understand what was going on. And of course, Sudo keeps auditing trails on what command was ran by whom exactly, when it happened, and you can actually store this information or on local machine or on some kind of remote machine. Still, sudo can be easily fooled sometimes because you can, for example, just fire some shell, like in this example, sudo bash, and here you go, you have a privileged shell, and whatever you type there goes without noticing. And I mean, there's no record whatsoever on the specific activity in this specific shell. So despite its strengths, you still have to be aware of these ways of misusing sudo and not rely entirely only on it. All these tools cannot collect information on very detailed level. And by that I mean, you know which command were typed and executed by the user, but still you have little idea of what exactly happened inside, like which system calls were executed, were it executed successfully or failed. If you type something like rm asterisk, you probably have plenty of files being deleted. Which files were there? All this information is not available when you're using tools like sudo and screen and script and so on. So if you do want to know this kind of information, what can you do? And the answer is audit. Auditing facility is a built-in facility which you can find in Solaris, and there's very similar packages for Linux, for example, and other operating systems. And these facilities usually operate at kernel level. And most of the time involves a significant amount of configuration and initial setup if you want to get it done correctly and if you want to have it in a way you want it exactly. And in Solaris specifically, configuration is quite cumbersome. You have to go through a lot of detailed documentation in order to understand what exactly this tool is doing, what kind of information is available for me, what can I do with it, what kind of information I would like to keep for a long time. And if you configure it correctly, it can provide a huge amount of information. It goes as low as system call level and collects information about very internal stuff. And the downside is, since this is a huge amount of information and you have to keep it somewhere, you're probably going to fill your storage pretty quickly. So this is also something to keep in mind and to assess before you're going to deploy this stuff. You have to decide what kind of information you're going to keep and what kind of information you're going to just ignore. By default, Solaris can store this information in local files or probably over NFS. It also can emit messages into syslog, but there is a catch or something that you should also understand when you deploy it in this configuration is that when you routing your information into syslog, also the messages will be chopped at 1024 bytes boundary. So if the audit message is longer than that, you're going to lose the end of it while you start. Solaris 11 is somewhat better again in this respect, because in Solaris 11 there is another plugin which allows you to send over this audit records into some remote host. It's kind of getting the best of both local files and syslog, because syslog also can be routed to some different hosts. You getting all the information and you're actually sending it over to some other location, which actually quite good because you can decide that you're going to store everything on some dedicated machine where auditing trails from many servers are being collected all together. So there's nothing on the machine itself and the server itself. And this dedicated central location keeps all your records. And you have also one machine to worry about disk space. And believe me, you're going to consume everything you have there pretty quickly. Another note I would like to mention here is that on Solaris 10, if you decide to implement auditing, you have to reboot your machine beforehand, otherwise nothing will work for you. And that is because Solaris 10 requires some kernel tweaking in order to have auditing enabled. So just don't forget to do it, otherwise it will stare at empty logs. And by the way, Solaris 11 doesn't require you to do any rebooting as it comes pre-configured already. Okay, so besides very known and widely used tools, there are also some open source packages which can be useful as well. And one of them, and actually one of the less known tools, is sudo shell tool, which is a nice wrapper for sudo or for privileged shell. You can, and it's available from SourceForge website, and you can run it instead of your shell, for example. And what it does for you, it collects your entire session, very similar to a script or to a screen, with the added bonus is that you can't escape from it if you're using it as a shell itself. So everything being recorded, and there is no way to get out other than an exit, of course, which is really nice. This tool comes in source form. You have to build it yourself, but it's very easy and it's very useful. It's exactly what you are looking for. And of course, this tool is not going to help you if you again require some detailed low-level information. Only the terminal output will be collected. There is another similar tool which is root shell, and it provides more or less same functionality. It also is available from SourceForge.net website. Like I said, it's very similar. You also would like to use this tool, for example, instead of root shell, very similar to sudo shell. I would also like to remind you that if you have any questions, this is a good time to ask them through this webinar interface. I will ask questions as they come through, or I will also have another opportunity to answer the questions at the end of this webinar. So if you have any questions, go ahead, ask them right away. So let's summarize. There are plenty of tools in modern operating system which can help you collect quite a lot of auditing information. And of course, each tool has its own gaps here and there. Like there are plenty of tools to collect terminal output, but they all lacking capabilities on a lower level. There is in-kernel auditing, which collects huge amount of detailed logs or detailed auditing records, but misses entirely terminal activity. And by combining them together, you can have pretty good picture of what exactly was happening on your system. Unfortunately, this kind of disjoint source of information. So you have to work really hard in order to understand what exactly happened. You're going to analyze your screen captures. You're going to look through audit records and trying to find out where this find a cross section between two of them if you're looking for some specific event. You're going to keep quite a lot of data, and going through it can be quite an adventure. And needless to say, if you are required to get the answer quickly, you're not going to enjoy it. So with that in mind, I would like to demonstrate to you one of commercial platforms, and that is auditing facility, which is developed in Observe. And this tool tries to address the limitation of the system that we described earlier, and to both provide interactive terminal activity and collect information from the lower level, and most importantly, to allow you easily traverse all this information and see exactly what's going on. And I believe the best way is to just have a simple demo. So here we have the shell, and here we have this web management or web GUI. You know what? Let me actually have a new session. Okay, so I just logged in. Here's my window, and by the way, here's a message, nice message saying the activity is being recorded. So indeed, system already noted that there is a new session, and I can see that in the player that activity. Let's see how it works in real time. When I type do asterisk, I also probably removed this directory documents, which also starts from do. So if I miss that fact and later would try to find out why this directory isn't here anymore, web server, and I can look through the commands being run in this session, and right here I see that was command rm. So I can see here the command is they were typed and sent for execution, and I can also search for file names if I know what I'm looking for. Let's say documents. And let's see what we will find here. Yep, that's right. And here we see that indeed this directory documents was removed recently. press this replay icon. So that's right here, as it was typed. So, tool is very powerful. You can dig much more information from it, and you can go through the details after the session actually ended. You can replay the session afterwards. You can know exactly who accessed which file. You can know exactly who executed some command, for example, when it was executed, what number of times it was executed, for example. All this is being presented in a very easy to understandable way. So, well, that concludes the demo. And if you have any questions, I will be really happy to answer them. Okay, I see that there's a question. Is there any support for graphical environment like X Windows? And the answer is, well, partially. We don't have full support like at Windows, where we can have an entire screenshot of full graphic environment, but we do support X terminals or GNOME terminals or terminals like that. So anything that you type in these terminals are going to be recorded and logged as it would be recorded from a secure shell session or otherwise. And this complementary question is how about console? And answer is once again yes, console has been recorded as well. There is no connection with protocol or whatsoever. So if you're going to connect directly from the console, all the session will be recorded as well. Okay, so thank you very much. I'm going to pass the mic to Brad, and thank you for being with me.
Okay, so I want to say thank you again to Cyril for joining us on this webinar, and thank you to all of you who've participated. If you have any last questions that you still would like to get in, either right now during the webinar, you can post it in, or if you'd like to ping us offline, feel free to contact Cyril at the email that's on that's on display right now, cyril.plisko@gragel.com. And we'll be glad to take any follow-up answers that you might have offline. And of course, you can feel free via the Observit website if you have any specific questions about Observit that you'd like to clarify in that path as well. You can feel free via the website to contact us or to send me an email at brad@observit.com, brad@observit.com. Again, thank you all for participating. Have yourselves a great afternoon or morning, rest of the morning, rest of the day, wherever you might be logging in from. Thank you for taking the time being with us. And have a great day. Goodbye.